introducing yourself and tell me what you do, where you work, and how long you've been there for.
I'm Sharon Gamble. I'm with the University of Florida Agricultural Extension Service, and I have been there for 35 years. I work primarily in the areas of livestock, pasture forages, dabble into forestry, and a little bit into fire.
And how long have you been working for?
35 years. And I've also done 4-H work in the past too.
So we talked a little about this, but how was it coming into an organization where most of the clientele is men, most of the people that you worked with were men?
Well, when I came into the organization, I was like the second female livestock agent hired in the state. And after about 6 months, I was the only female livestock agent still in the state working. I've remained in that field for all these years. It was very tough coming in. I came in from another state. Everything was different. I didn't know anybody, and there was a lot of biases that existed at the workplace and in the clientele at that time. And actually, I felt more of the biases in the workplace than I did with my clientele.
What was it, like a story? Like what was the challenge in terms of like how extension agents are supposed to get along? So we know that, like, you know, talking and bonding is one of the ways that extension get along. So what were the challenges in terms of being, you know, the only woman around?
Well, one of the challenges was if you went on in-service training somewhere and it required an overnight, everyone else had someone to share a room with and split their expenses, and I had to stay in a room by myself, which I was happy to do. But I didn't have anyone to share my expenses with, so my expense account to do some traveling and stuff was effectively half of what all the men's were, which is something no one really gave much thought to, but it was tough, and I was always the outsider.
And what do you mean outsider? Can you kind of explain what that means?
Oh, if the guys were all standing around talking and you'd walk up and they were telling a joke, they'd stop and kind of give you that look like, would you please step away so that we can finish the joke? It was a little uncomfortable until one day I sat down and talked with a fella, and I said, let him know how uncomfortable it made me feel, and we agreed that he would continue on with the stories, and he did. And he really appreciated my telling him that he was making me feel very uncomfortable in the process.
And can you speak to, like, how in extension, like how, you know, you kind of do your job in a lot of those in-between times, and so how that would relate to, like, kind of being shut out, you know, those in-between times, like in the conversations and things like that?
I'm not following you.
Well, like, so, you know, it's like you go to a conference, and then at the break time is where you make a connection with a colleague and you start chatting and you get this good idea, and then all of a sudden you and them are, you know, you're collectively writing a project together or something like that.
Well, having been loosely involved with 2 associations now, I will tell you I have found the ANREP association, which of course this is now, you know, 2018. The people are much more friendly and willing to talk, and another association, people are really well founded and they're really into what they're in, and they're not maybe quite as open. I know in my position we've formed a group in the state that we work together very closely and cooperatively, and we do a lot of work together there, and we don't have any biases within that group. And we tend to work as a group, and so that if I get involved with something, that group gets involved with something. And so it kind of takes some of that out of it.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give for a new extension agent, or let's start with extension agents starting out?
Well, if you're new and you're young, freshly out of school, it's okay not to know everything out there. What's handy is those of us that have been doing this a while, we know that you don't know a lot, that you're fresh out of school. And so just know that it's okay to ask a lot of questions. And I would say that it'd be a good plan is to keep your ears open, listen, ask good questions, and don't be too fast to give answers.
What about for a new extension specialist who doesn't necessarily have the benefit of as much training as maybe an agent gets sometimes?
Specialists, I've had various working relationships with specialists, and the specialists that really reach out to the extension agents, to us, is extremely valuable, and we will help those specialists get information and get things rolling for them and give them some TLC, so to speak, because we really like having a specialist that we work closely with. But I will tell you, it's a kiss of death if you come into someone's county and you do not let them know that you're there. That is not a good way to win friends and influence enemies.
How can a relationship with an extension specialist benefit the agent, and how can that relationship benefit the specialist?
Well, I will tell you that I work with the Central Florida Livestock Agents Group, and when we have a new specialist that is hired that's working on some aspect of what we work on, either beef or forages, we make a point to invite that specialist into our group to sit down for a group conversation and get to know each other. And I think these groups that work together, that's their obligation to the specialist to do that, and the specialists need to also be cognizant of trying to work more closely with that group.
And can you speak to like opportunities that have come up from relationships with specialists, like for grants or for needs assessments or things that kind of fit their tenure dossier, but also supplied you with something you need as well?
Well, we're highly aware that when you have, as a specialist, and you have an extension appointment, that there are, sometimes that can work against you in trying to get into your promotion and tenure packet. As agents, we have at times worked on research projects hand in hand, helping to supply some of the labor and being an integral part of that research project so that that specialist can get what they need to succeed as well.
Right.
And I will tell you the other aspect is we've had some specialists come and go, and we've maintained liaisons with those specialists, and so in effect we created cross-state collaborations from that close working relationship.
Let's see. How have you balanced like home life and the life of an extension agent over the years?
Well, one Monday evening at the dinner table, my daughter said, "Mom, what kind of night meetings do you have this week?" And I just shrunk. It's tough balancing. I think administration is getting far more cognizant of personal time with an agent. We're getting away from what I call the days of IBM, where you work from 7 to 7 and you wear a suit and you work Monday through Friday and Saturday and Sunday as well. So I think administration's had a big part to play in that. Flexibility in the workplace is absolutely key and essential. One of my things that helped me a great deal is my kids were old enough. I did quite a bit of 4-H work. I was able to involve my kids, and they were also a slave labor force to help me do programs. But being able to have my kids work with me on a lot of things really helped me to balance the personal life.
That's great. Anything else that you'd like to mention, or things that you've shared with people that you've mentored, or?
Well, let's see. When I was starting an extension, I didn't have a mentor. In fact, we didn't really even have new agent orientation at that point in time. New agent orientation is very valuable, and I think administration or county directors really need to help provide mentorship or hook new agents up with someone to mentor a little bit loosely or very much in depth. It just sort of depends. But one of the things that I would do different today if I was coming along, and this was partly the lack of mentorship and some of the direction I was giving, if you're a young agent, get involved with your association early on, be participatory, take advantage of the opportunities that have to offer. It will do nothing but help you in your career, and you will meet many colleagues across the country by doing so.
Cool. I was just gonna ask something too, crap. My brain's starting to muddle a little bit.
When did you feel like you had a handle on the job?
Yeah.
When you're coming into the job, of course, I came in from another state. I didn't know anybody. The grasses were different. Everything was different. Even the breeds of cattle and their temperaments were different. It probably takes about 3 years to feel like you're getting settled. The first year, you're trying to learn the climate and what grows when. And by the 3rd year, you should start to get it together pretty good. The first couple of years, you just want to get to know people and start developing trust and comradeship with them.
And then, so lastly, so you kind of started out more livestock, animal health, but you've now morphed into doing a lot of other things as well. So what do you think about in terms of like the natural resources audiences versus more the ag audiences, or where there's overlap, where there's not overlap, and how that flows out?
There is a tremendous amount of overlap from the ag and the animal science side of things with natural resources. In fact, the ranchers for many years have claimed that they were the first true environmentalists. And so to say that natural resources is different from ag, well, those of us in agriculture don't really feel that way. We do feel that we have been the stewards of the environment. And we note that it's our ranches that get bought up and turned into subdivisions, not subdivisions that get bought up and turned into ranches. And when environmental lands are purchased, it's generally our ag lands, and they're purchased for the reasons that there's species there, and they're there because of the way we manage the land. So is there a big difference between natural resources and ag? Not really.
And do you think that your programs you offer, like, is it still the same audiences, or do you, like, what do you think about different audiences that you work with?
They can be very different audiences. Once I started getting into some of the forestry issues and wildlife issues, I had people come to meetings I'd never seen before, and I don't see those people unless I do a forestry and wildlife meeting. And 10 years later, and all of a sudden, there they are again. So they are very different. They can be different audiences, but they're mostly all really interested in land and what's going on.
And what would you say, like, what have you seen change in terms of how to reach audiences, or how to widen your reach, or just like opportunities and things like that?
Reaching audiences has gotten more and more difficult, and when we used to have paper and we mailed things was the easiest way to reach your audiences. The audiences that are 40 and over still prefer to get paper mail, and if there's a newsletter laying on a countertop, they'll pick it up and read it, and reminds them of things. Some of the new electronic social media stuff might be great for the millennials, but it's like timing and which source they're using is really difficult. So, one of the best ways still for me is to go put notices in a feed store and just talk to people and get people to invite other people. When we do surveys all the time, we ask how people find out about programs, and it still comes down to extension agents and other people.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
There was something. I can't think what it was.
It's always how it is.
I know. I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
Oh, one thing I would like to add. One of the great things about being an extension is if you're a professional student at heart, this is a fabulous job to be in. And I've been in the same county for 35 years with a job description that hasn't varied greatly. But if you're a professional student, extension allows you the opportunity to always keep learning, and the difference is rather than you paying them tuition, they're paying you.